The moment 140,000 tons of Canadian potatoes vanished from American shelves, nobody noticed.
If we're not able to open markets to the United States, we would have to destroy a portion of their potatoes, and it would be very unfortunate, and nobody wants that.
No headlines, no protests, no angry tweets. They just disappeared into thin air, leaving behind empty warehouses and confused restaurant owners wondering why their fries suddenly tasted like wet cardboard. It happened on April 2nd, when Washington decided that slapping a 35% tariff on Canadian potatoes was somehow a brilliant negotiating tactic. Overnight, a simple bag of potatoes that cost $22 jumped to $30. Your favorite plate of fries at the local diner? That went from $3.50 to $5.25. And while Americans were digging deeper into their wallets for soggy fries, Canada's Prime Minister wasn't arguing or threatening retaliation. He was boarding a plane to Asia, ready to sign a $1.6 billion agricultural deal that would reshape North America's food trade forever. This wasn't supposed to happen. For decades, the potato pipeline between Canada and the United States was as reliable as gravity. Every year, Canada sent roughly 350,000 metric tons of potatoes south, enough to feed 17 million American households. Minnesota diners ran on Prince Edward Island potatoes the way Congress runs on lobbyist coffee. It was more than trade, it was tradition. But traditions die hard when you tax them at 35%. According to Agriculture Canada's latest reports, Canadian potato exports to the US collapsed by 41% in just one quarter. That's not a decline, that's an avalanche. And the most stunning part? Canada didn't fight back. They didn't impose counter tariffs or launch diplomatic protests. They simply redirected their trucks, rerouted their ships, and found new customers who actually wanted their products. When your biggest trading partner treats you like a threat instead of an ally, you don't argue, explained Dr. Sarah Chen, a trade economist at the University of Toronto. You adapt. And that's exactly what Canadian producers did. They adapted faster than anyone in Washington expected. The mathematics of this disaster are breathtaking. A standard 25-ton shipment of frozen fries that previously cost $32,000 now comes with an extra $11,200 in taxes. That's not a tariff. That's economic vandalism. Restaurant owners across the Midwest are watching their profit margins evaporate faster than water on a hot griddle. Take Jake Morrison, who runs a family diner in Duluth. "We didn't change suppliers by choice," he told local reporters. "We changed because our Canadian trucks stopped showing up. Customers noticed within a week. The fries don't taste right, they don't cook right, and people stopped coming back." The ripple effects are devastating. Mom-and-pop diners are quietly shrinking portions and rewriting menus because passing the full cost to customers means losing them entirely. Fast food joints across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan are reporting a 10 to 18% drop in customer satisfaction scores, all traced back to potato quality. One franchise owner in Fargo put it bluntly, "We went from 3 plates of fries for $10 to barely 1.5. Our margins didn't shrink, they vanished." Meanwhile, Canadian processors like McCain and Cavendish have executed a masterclass in quiet adaptation. No press releases, no public complaints, just fewer trucks heading south and more heading everywhere else. Statistics Canada reports that mid-sized farms have cut their planting acreage by 15 to 25% this season, not because of drought or disease, but because their biggest customer decided to build an economic wall without warning. "The Americans assumed we'd come crawling back," said Pierre LeBlanc, a third-generation potato farmer from New Brunswick. "But why would we? Asia's paying better prices, Europe's opening doors, and we don't have to deal with surprise taxes every time someone in Washington has a bad day." The irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. While American importers scramble to find domestic alternatives, they're discovering what Canadian farmers have known for generations. Not all potatoes are created equal. Idaho potatoes might be famous, but they don't fry like Prince Edward Island varieties. The starch content is different, the texture varies, and the results are consistently disappointing. I paid $5 for fries that tasted like wet cardboard, complained one regular at an Eau Claire diner. I used to come here twice a week. Now I bring my lunch. He's not alone. Across the heartland, the potato crisis has become a daily reminder of what happens when politics trumps practicality. Big chains like McDonald's can negotiate bulk deals and absorb the costs, but smaller establishments are bleeding customers and cash. What makes this situation even more remarkable is Canada's response, or rather, their lack of one. Instead of retaliating with their own tariffs or launching trade disputes, they simply pivoted. Processors began shifting inventory to domestic markets. Farms retooled for 5-kilogram retail packs. Surplus potatoes were redirected to food banks and community kitchens, with over 12,000 tons going to low-income food programs in just one quarter. "We didn't need to fight," explained Trade Minister Patricia Ung during a recent press conference in Toronto. "We just needed to find partners who value reliability over rhetoric. And find them, they did." Since late 2024, Canada has been systematically expanding agricultural trade beyond their high-maintenance southern neighbor. That $1.6 billion deal signed with Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia isn't just about potatoes. It's about building a future where Canadian farmers aren't held hostage by American politics. Prince Edward Island alone exported $8 million worth of fresh potatoes to Indonesia last year, with shipments rising monthly. Thailand has become Canada's largest non-US importer, purchasing over 14 million in fresh and seed potatoes. Caribbean nations like Trinidad and Panama are each buying more than 13 million worth annually. These aren't just sales, they're relationships. In Charlottetown, a freezing facility signed a long-term deal with a Japanese distributor and added a new processing line, creating 45 full-time jobs and increasing local purchases by 15%. They're even buying those ugly Grade 2 potatoes that used to become livestock feed, turning them into premium frozen products for Asian markets. "The goal isn't revenge," said facility manager Robert Chang. "It's resilience. Because if you rely on one market that throws a tantrum every election cycle, you're not in business. You're in a hostage situation." While American diners struggle with subpar fries, something extraordinary is happening in the boardrooms of Beijing and Ottawa. On January 15, 2025, Chinese agricultural giant COFCO signed a deal that would have been unthinkable just 18 months ago, a direct purchasing agreement for Canadian potatoes worth $420 million annually. No middlemen, no American distributors, just Canadian farms shipping directly to Chinese processing plants. The timing wasn't coincidental. As Washington celebrated their tariff victory, Beijing was calculating. China imports roughly 1.2 million tons of frozen potato products annually, mostly from Europe and the United States. But with American prices artificially inflated and European suppliers stretched thin, Canada suddenly looked like the perfect partner. "The Americans handed us a gift wrapped in tariffs," admitted Wang Lei, a senior procurement officer at a major Chinese food distributor. Canadian potatoes are 22% cheaper than American ones after the tariff, and the quality is identical. Why would we pay more for political theater? The numbers tell a stunning story of market realignment. In the third quarter of 2024, Canadian potato exports to China jumped by 67%. By early 2025, that figure had nearly doubled. Processing facilities in Manitoba that once sent 90% of their output south now ship 45% to Asia. It's not just a shift, it's a complete reorientation of North American agricultural trade. Take the case of Prairie Gold Processors in Brandon, Manitoba. For 30 years, their trucks made the same journey, south to Minneapolis, then dispersed across the American Midwest. Today, those same trucks head west to Vancouver, where containers are loaded onto ships bound for Shanghai, Seoul, and Singapore. The company's CEO, Michael Thompson, doesn't mince words about the transformation. "We lost our biggest customer overnight, but we gained 10 new ones who actually appreciate what we do," Thompson explained during a recent facility tour. "The Americans thought they were punishing us. Instead, they liberated us from a toxic relationship." The liberation comes with tangible benefits. Prairie Gold's revenues are up 18% despite losing American contracts. They've hired 70 new workers to handle increased Asian demand. Most remarkably, they're getting paid 15% more per ton from Asian buyers who value consistency over confrontation. But the real shock comes from an unexpected player: Mexico. As American restaurants grapple with potato shortages and quality issues, Mexican food chains have been quietly importing Canadian potatoes through a clever workaround. Instead of shipping directly to the US, Canadian processors send products to Mexican facilities, where they're repackaged and sent north. The irony is delicious. American consumers are still eating Canadian potatoes, just with a Mexican label and a 40% markup. It's economic comedy.